Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head over to America once again, and we're going to return to a brewery that's featured on the channel a couple of times before. Now, the last review that I did from these guys appeared on the channel a few months ago, but prior to that, it was a couple of years since I had reviewed some of this brewery's beers, and I visited the brewery on site, which was really interesting, and they're a very well respected name both in America these days and further afield. And if people were to ask me about this brewery, I would say that they're best known for their different kinds of IPAs, notably the New England Hazy, whatever you want to call them, IPAs. But the beer we're going to have a look at today is a variant of one of their really famous and very well respected beers, and I have to say I'm just very curious to see how it turns out. So hopefully it's another good beer. Hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys watching enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we're going to head over to the US, like I said. We're going to go to the state of Iowa, which is out to the west a little bit of Chicago, of course, in the American Midwest, the flyover states, whatever you want to call them. And then we're going to go to a little town called Decorah, which happens to be home to the wonderful Toppling Goliath Brewing Company. So this particular beer is called Seismic. It comes in at 9.8% ABV. It's a New England Hazy, Imperial Triple, whatever you want to call it, IPA. And this beer apparently is kind of intended as the big brother of the legendary King Sue. So yeah, it was a nice surprise to find this one here in Hong Kong. But this is yet another beer that I picked up from the wonderful Gur Beer in the One Mall in Tsim Sha Tsui in Kowloon here in Hong Kong. And if you do find yourself over here, I'd recommend you go and check out their shop. They've always got some really interesting stuff, and yeah, this was yet another discovery that I made there. So I'll try to remember to put the link to their Instagram page in the video description below, so do make sure you check that out. But yeah, nice to return to Toppling Goliath Brewing Company after what I think has been about 6 months or so, especially to try a kind of bigger, bolder variant of one of their really famous beers. So let's crack on with this one then and see what it's going to have in store for us. So, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting though, just fast forward. All the usual links can be found in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Toppling Goliath Brewing Company before, and we will no doubt add some more to that list at some point in the fairly near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The support that you give is massively appreciated, and remember, you can go into the channel homepage and search for beer using the geography tagging system. So just go in there, use the little search bar, put in your hometown, state, county, province, whatever you like. If I've reviewed beers from the area that you search for, they will pop up. Failing that though, you can check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You'll find this one in the American playlist along with a number of other things. That's being added to very regularly, of course, because we do get a good selection of American beers here in Hong Kong. But do make sure you check out the playlist of beers from other countries as well, because there are some very interesting things on at the channel these days. But yeah, let's go into my brewery notes then, and I'll tell you a wee bit about Toppling Goliath Brewing Company once again then. So, Toppling Goliath, as I've told you before, was founded by Clark and Barb Louie back in 2009, and they're based in the little town of Decorah in Iowa, which, if I remember rightly, is in the kind of southeastern part of the state. But Clark had apparently been involved in the beverage industry with his family's company for about 28 years prior to starting the brewery, and prior to that, he did a tour with the US Air Force. But he used to have to drive about an hour or so to Wisconsin to get craft beer, and he decided that he was sick of doing this and that he would start his own brewery so that he could get these beers that he liked for himself. But he's also a lover of wine, and he used to make his own wine, and he toyed with the idea for quite some time of having his own brew pub. But he later started homebrewing beer with his wife Barb, and things just kind of evolved from there. So he started making IPAs, but then he developed a lager called Dorothy's New World Lager, which went down very well with his brothers. But soon after starting the company, he hired Mark Sabo to come in as his brewmaster, and he had a considerable chemistry and biology background. And over the next couple of years, the brewery grew to have an excellent reputation, particularly for the IPAs, but there has been a little bit of controversy in recent times as well surrounding the treatment of staff. There's been several lawsuits and disputes and things like that noted in the press over the last little while. But the quality of their beer has always remained pretty pretty solid from what I've seen. And today the brewery have got a very large tap room which has over 20 taps. It also serves food and they offer brewery tours as well. You can check out my out and about video that I filmed there back in, I want to say 2019 if I'm not mistaken. But today these guys are producing well over 100,000 US barrels of beer per year, which is of over 10 million litres. And as of January 2025, when I'm filming this review for you, these guys have produced 180 different kinds of beer according to Untappd. But yeah, that is everything I can really tell you about Toppling Goliath Brewing Company for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on. And you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn a little bit more about all of the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's go on then and have a wee look at the beer itself. So, this one, as you can see, it's meant to be, the King Sue of course has that lovely orange artwork on it with the dinosaur, and obviously Seismic Sue, they're just showing you the foot to kind of, I guess, to sort of make you think, oh, maybe this is a lot bigger, just showing you the foot. But yeah, there you can see on the can, there is the Toppling Goliath Brewing Company symbol. I'm just trying to get that so the light isn't reflecting off it. This is a shiny one, of course, so the camera doesn't like it. But yeah, plain silver top on the can there. This can, incidentally, is 473 millilitres, which is 1 American pint. Like I said earlier, it comes in at 9.8% ABV, a New England Hazy Imperial Triple, whatever you want to call it, IPA. I would tend to say that triple IPA starts at 10% ABV, but that's me kind of being pedantic, if you like. But it says a triple IPA version of our beloved Citra hopped Pseudo Sue, smashed onto the scene with colossal notes of mango, orange and pineapple. Its hop forward bite will reverberate on your palate and finish with a grapefruit aroma, creating a perfectly ferocious brew. Unfiltered beer, sediment is normal. So yeah, this should be quite nice. I think we've got this, does it say when it was canned? Oh, it's packaged on the 1st of August 2024, so we're actually drinking this one at maybe about 4 months old, so yeah. But I didn't get this one. I only bought this one at the start of December. So yeah, we got this one in Hong Kong at about 3 months old in that case. So yeah, I'm sure it will still be fine right enough, but yeah, we're not drinking this one at its freshest, so we will need to think about that when we taste this one. But yeah, 9.8% New England Hazy Imperial Triple IPA, the Seismic Sue. Let me just get this guy open. Seems to be behaving itself, so we can get it out into the glass and see what it's all about. Yeah. So yeah, you can see this one, the carbonation, when it behaves like that, the beer is a little bit older, if you like. So yeah, the head pretty much disappeared right away on this one. You could see that there was like a quarter finger of a frothy kind of cream coloured head there. There's a few bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass right enough. But yeah, that has pretty much all disappeared. Kind of a soapy coloured head there. I'm sure if this beer was that little bit fresher, we would have got some head lingering there. But then again, when it's so high in alcohol, you're going to lose the head quite easily in it. But yeah, you can see that the beer's poured this lovely, very bright yellow sort of mango juice colour. 1 or 2 big bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass, a few little ones going up toward the surface of the liquid there. You can see them just kind of popping up. But yeah, the colour of this one, definitely very bright yellow mango juice colour. I always love comparing the colour of New England IPAs to different fruit juices, because that's really just what they remind me of. But remember, the colour of your beer depends on a few things. 1, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. 2, length of your wort boil is going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise and thus you get a darker coloured beer. But any barrel aging that you do or adjuncts you put into the beer will affect its colour as well, but you don't often have to care about that when it comes to the IPA style category generally, only really with fruit IPAs, in all honesty. But not too much in the way of visible carbonation with this one, but yeah, there are 1 or 2 little bits in there, but all in all, it looks pretty much as you would expect of a New England IPA of any description. If I put my hand behind the glass there, you can see this one is pretty damn soupy and gloopy, which you would expect when it's 9.8% ABV. Remember, the level of haze in these beers depends on the oat content, wheat content, and to a degree what yeast you use. So yeah, just bear that in mind. But yeah, all in all, I don't think there's anything else we really need to say about the appearance of this beer. Let's go on and have a wee look at the aroma then and just see what it's going to have in store for us. So yeah. Oh, right. I will say, it's actually, you have to sugar it up a little bit to get the aroma to be a wee bit more pungent, actually. So, yeah, the way that that goes together is quite interesting, in all honesty. Yeah, but when you do get the aroma out of it, it smells really, really nice. So, gives you everything you want. Very bright green component, lots of big juicy fruity notes, and of course you've got that big malty kind of creamy backbone to it. So, as I've often said on the channel, when it comes to hazy IPAs, for me there are 6 elements to think about when it comes to the sort of malty and yeasty side of things. You have the yeasty sort of farmhousey type character and the rye and grainy side of things. Those 2 elements are a little bit more common in New England brewed New England IPAs. It started out as a farmhouse IPA, of course, think like Alchemist and Lawson's Finest Liquids, but as the style has moved away from New England and been brewed in other places, the focus has more been on like wheaty bitiness, oaty creaminess, barley malt bread, and also the sweeter side of things. For me, when you sugar this beer up, there's a lot of oaty notes to it. It is actually quite sweet as well, and you do have a bit of that wheaty bitiness in the back of the nose, which is really, really nice. So that's definitely kind of coming out of this one. So yeah, really interesting stuff going on with this beer actually. Yeah, more of a wheaty leaning New England IPA. Lovely bright green component to it as well, and really nice kind of soft, just juicy fruits actually, but has got a fair bit of sweet component to it. Let's just break the aroma down then and describe it for you a wee bit more in depth to see what's going on. So yeah, the backbone of this beer, as you often get, you've got that lovely kind of fresh white bready bread crust coming out of it. There's little hints of woodiness, little bit of cracker. If you sugar it up a little bit more, you can smell a little bit of brown bread, and the brown bready character that comes out of this one is it is definitely a little touch sweeter, I would say. So yeah, lovely little bit of sweetness coming out of this beer. Yeah, a bit of a mix of like sweeter brown bread in there. You do of course get that lovely kind of fresh white bready character coming out of it. Those 2 elements are coming from the barley of course in this one. But for me, there's quite a little bit of wheaty character to this one, and the thing that's interesting about the wheat is that it actually comes across as being quite bitey in a sense. I've often said on the channel that North American wheat is a little bit smoother than European wheat. Mostly European wheat is a little bit more kind of bitey and things like that, but I'm wondering how much of those, some of those qualities will be down to the water profile and the soil profile in which it's grown, of course, but to an extent it will also be due to the malting process. So I wonder what the differences are between the American and the European malting process. But yeah, European wheat generally is a bit more kind of bitey, whereas American wheat's a bit smoother. European oats are a bit more creamy. North American oats are a little bit more kind of porridgey almost, I would say. So yeah, I'm picking up quite a little bit, especially at the back of the nose. There's quite a wee bit of like wheaty bitiness coming out of this one, but you've got that very dense and smooth white bready wheaty note coming out of this beer. But yeah, at the same time, there's a good little bit of oaty character in there. I do get some kind of nice sweetness out of the oats as well, but you can smell that the oats are a little bit drier in this one. As I've often said, oaty character in a New England IPA can be a rough indicator of how fresh your beer is. Essentially, the creamier the oats are, the fresher the beer is, the drier they are, the older it is, and you can certainly smell a little bit of the dryness from the oats in here. Other than that, I would say that the beer does have a good little bit of like Werther's Original butter candy, butterscotch, and biscuity sweetness to it, and 9.8% ABV. You'd kind of expect that. There's probably like a little bit of brew sugar in this one to take the ABV up to that kind of 10%-ish type mark. It's not uncommon, and that's probably one of the reasons why the can is wet. Jeez, oh, sorry. Yeah, that's probably one of the reasons why the can was feeling a little bit more sort of solid. As well as the age on this one, you will have a bit of secondary fermentation. So probably this beer is stronger than 9.8% at this particular moment in time. We'll just need to see. But yeah, other than that, I don't know if there's much to say about the malty side of things. The yeasty side of this beer, it's a mix of like brown bread and white bread that's coming out at the back of the nose. There's wee bits of like cracker and bread crust and things in there. But that is, of course, all to be expected from this this particular beer style, if you like. So yeah, the yeasty character on this one is quite nice. Now let's focus on the hoppy side of the beer then. So as I've often said in my IPA reviews, there are 3 different kinds of hoppings that you can do when you're brewing an IPA. You've got early addition hopping, which takes place within the first hour of the wort boil. That's going to give you a very dank green component, but it's responsible for pretty much all your bitterness. You've got late addition hopping, which takes place within the latter half hour of the wort boil. Gives you a wee bit of bitterness, mainly flavour and aroma, and it's going to give you a very bright green component. And you've also got dry hopping, which takes place after the wort boil is complete. It's also going to give you a very bright green component, but it only gives you flavour and aroma. New England IPAs tend to rely on late addition and dry hopping, whereas West Coast IPAs use all 3, which is why they have that deeper, danker and more sort of oily quality. With this beer, I have a feeling that it's, yeah, I'm pretty sure this one, I think it will have a little bit of Whirlpool early edition hopping in it, because there's a wee bit of like deepness and depth and dankness to it, I should say. Bad English there. There's a little bit of depth and dankness to it. But yeah, you've got quite a lot of nice oily, floral and grassy character to this one, which makes me think is there maybe a bit of incognito or cry or something has been used in this one, just because of how smooth that that green component is. But yeah, in all honesty, the the green component of this one, I think, is really nice and very smooth. A bit little touch earthy, of course. I think there's a wee bit mosaic in this one as well. It's a little bit earthy, but you've got some nice, and that would be due to the mosaic, but nice little bit of floral aromatistic and some grassiness, and they are very oily and very, very smooth. So yeah, the aroma that comes out of this beer, I think, is really nice on the green component. In terms of the fruity side of things, I'm a bit less sure about whether there's mosaic in this one, because I don't find the aroma overly orangey, to be honest with you. For me, I get a lot of peach, which is one of the telltale signs of Citra. You get that kind of sharper peachy, guava-y sort of note. There's definitely grapefruit in there, which again Citra's going to give you, but lots and lots of really ripe, juicy mango. And there's a wee bit of like, there's definitely a bit of lemony, limey character to this one, which again, they say Citra's in this one, so we know it's there. I can see why they say there's a bit of orange to this, and the earthiness too makes me think maybe a bit of mosaic, but I don't know why they wouldn't just say Citra and mosaic in this one. I honestly can't remember if King Sue is just Citra single hop. I thought it was Citra and mosaic in honesty. But yeah, the aroma that comes out of this one is really nice, and if you sugar it up, you get a bit more of the wheaty bitiness, and also that kind of stronger grapefruity type quality. It comes across, you know, it's strange to say this with the New England hazies, but it comes across as like quite an old school New England hazy, this one, in some ways. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a wee bit of Chinook in this actually, because the more that you smell of it, the more you get that kind of deep, dank, sort of piney resinous note out of it. And it's not uncommon with the New England IPA to do a little bit more early addition hopping and up the bitterness a wee bit, just to balance out all the sweetness that you get from the extra wheat and oats and stuff that are in these beers. So yeah, all in all, really interesting aroma this one, and it makes me very, very curious about the actual beer. So I think we should leave the aroma section at that and have a taste of this beer and see what it's all about. So let's do it. This one is the Seismic Sioux, a 9.8% New England Hazy Imperial Triple, whatever you want to call it, IPA. Beer that I've heard very good things about from the wonderful Toppling Goliath Brewing Company in Decorah in Iowa. Let's try this one. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Ooh, that is nice. I'm going to say that. Let's get the last wee bits. You could see that sedimented a wee bit there. Yeah. So I will say you can taste a little bit, but it's not in its absolute prime. But it's still really, really nice. You taste a little bit of like sort of almost dustiness from the hops in this one. So there will be pellets in this too. So there's a wee bit of dustiness and a wee tiny touch of earthiness, but the beer is still in really good condition. I've had it in the fridge pretty much all the time. So yeah, this is pretty damn good. Even more so when you put that last little bit into it, that's kind of made that wee bit of earthiness and dustiness just take a back seat there. So yeah, obviously with it being the age that it is, like, what was it, 4 months I said, yeah, it will have had a bit of sediment there, but you could see that when we poured it. But again, this is another just very, very solid beer from Toppling Goliath, but you wouldn't expect anything else. It's quite well balanced between the oaty and the kind of wheaty bitey side of things, but you've got a lovely, just juicy, fruity note to this one. But the green component does give you a wee bit of bitterness into the aftertaste as well. But regardless, big thumbs up to Toppling Goliath in this one. I think this is great. Yeah, let's just go through the flavour of this beer then in the normal way that we do. Middle third of your palate then. The backbone of the beer, you've got that lovely kind of fresh white bready bread crust in there. It's a little bit grainier further back on the palate, but a bit smoother further forward. Remember, sweeter flavours come out further forward on the palate, more dry and bitter flavours come out further back. But yeah, you've got that lovely kind of fresh white bready bread crust in there. On the middle third of your palate, there's a wee bit of woodiness that comes out into the aftertaste. Then you've got a kind of smattering of Jacob's cream cracker. This is something we've encountered many, many times before. But yeah, I would say on top of the kind of crackery layer, you do get a slight layer of like a wholemeal brown bready character just sitting there. It's not really that sweet actually. It does give you a wee bit of graininess into the aftertaste, so there's a wee bit of that going on. On top of the brown bready layer, you start to get the white bready notes coming out of the beer, which I think are really quite nice as well. So yeah, really like that about this beer. The sort of brown bready, more grainy bread underneath is really nice, and then yeah, you've got the fluffier white bread just sitting on top of that. So yeah, lovely kind of fluffy white bread on top of that. And yeah, above everything else, you've got that more dense, wheaty, white bready note out of this one. And like I said, the wheat in this beer, that sort of wheaty, white bready layer, it does have a degree of sweetness to it, but the wheat actually feels a little bit more bitey. And again, it's a bit smoother further forward on that middle third of your palate, but it's a little bit more bitey further back. Yeah, definitely you can see that, particularly that border region between middle and back third of your palate. You really get a bit of wheaty bitiness there. So yeah, you've got the wheaty character sitting on top of the you've got that wheaty character just sitting on top of the barley malt part of the beer, and then you get the oaty side of this one coming out. So like down the middle line of your palate, you get that lovely sort of oaty kind of creamy character there, and as you move out toward the edges of that middle third of your tongue, you start to get a wee bit of a more kind of dry oaty character coming out of it. And yeah, I really like how that goes together as well, that's for sure. So that gets a thumbs up from me as well. Yeah, so for me, the oaty character in this one is quite interesting. As I say, it's quite creamy down the middle line of your tongue. It gets that little bit drier as you move out toward the edges of the palate. But of course, the beer's 4 months old, so that effect will become more and more pronounced the older this beer gets. But in the dead centre of your palate, you've got that nice little bit of they've got that nice little circle there where you get the kind of boozy sweetness out of the beer. So for me, like in the very dead centre, there's a straight up caramel there, but as you move out toward the edges of that, it's absolutely got more yeah, it's absolutely got more of a, yeah, it's got more of a kind of Werther's original butter candy, butterscotchy type note out of this one. But yeah, further out from that toward the edges of the palate, there's definitely some kind of McVitie's digestive biscuity notes there. But I think at this point we've covered everything we need to about the middle third of your palate in the beer. So let's go to the back third of your palate then. The border region between middle and back third of your palate, you get that nice little bit of bready build up in there. So there's the brown bread in the base, the kind of barley malt white bread in the middle, then there's a more kind of wheaty white bready character just sitting above that. But yeah, the base of that back third of your palate, you've got a really nice yeah, you've got a really nice kind of, I would say, like, again, the bread crusty character is just that little bit drier and more grainy. So you've got that white bready bread crust in there, you've got the Jacob's cream cracker sitting on top of that, then the brown bready layer that sits above that is a little bit lighter, taller and more airy. The white bready layer that sits above that is again a little bit lighter, taller, more airy. Then you've got the more dense, wheaty, white bready character that sits on top of that. So yeah, more dense, wheaty, white bready character, and that's where you get kind of the bitiness out of this beer, and that comes out more and more into the aftertaste. Top of everything else there, you have the yeasty side of it. So at its core, the yeast is a little bit more, what would I say, yeah, the yeasty side of the beer is actually kind of fairly sweet in a sense, and that again is what makes me think there's some brew sugar in here. So yeah, the yeast at its core, it has a bit of a sweeter brown bready note to it. Then as you move further out from that, it's a little bit more sweet and white bready, and then the very edge of it is a little bit more kind of bread crusty, and it's got a wee bit of a kind of grainy character to it as well. And definitely, yeah, the back third of your palate, the flavour is taller, and as you move further forward into the middle third of your palate, it kind of condenses down and squashes together that little bit more. So yeah, that's interesting with this one. I do get, like, into the aftertaste with the brown sugary notes I was talking about, I do get a little bit of a kind of skittly type vibe to this beer as well. So yeah, interesting stuff, that's for sure. On the hoppy side of things then, for me, this one, this beer does have a wee bit more IBU to it, and I think there is some early edition hopping going on in here. I want to say there's a bit of Chinook in this. There's just something telling me about the flavour of this beer, there's some Chinook. But yeah, in the back corners of the palate, you've got that nice little bit of earthiness in there. As you move further forward, you start to get a little bit of kind of piney resinous note underneath, which is what's making me think Chinook. There's a wee bit of, like, and as you come further forward from that, there's a little bit of more kind of floral aromatic spice. That could be Columbus or something. I really can't remember what the hop profile of the King Sue was, but I want to say there's a bit of Chinook in this. Columbus, I'm not so sure. Yeah, so nice floral aromatic spice on the kind of front corners of the palate, then round the front curve of the tongue. Pardon me, it's that little bit lighter and more sort of grassy, and yeah, it's got a wee bit more sort of zestiness to it as well. Yeah, it's good stuff actually, I really like that about this one. So nice kind of zesty grassiness around the front curve of the tongue. But let's look at the fruity side of this beer then, just to round off the kind of tasting flavour section of the video. So yeah, border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you get that nice little bit of bready build up in there. You've got the kind of brown bread in the base, the white bread in the middle, and the more dense kind of wheaty white bready character on the top. The base of the front third of your palate is the kind of white bready bread crust, the Jacob's cream cracker, brown bread, white bread, the wheat, and then I think there's a little bit of the smoother oat just creeps further forward as well. Then you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters just roll their way out of the beer. So let's look at that fruity side of things then. But yeah, the fruity side of this one is really pretty nice, and based on the flavour, yeah, I think I've got a feeling that this is Columbus. This is Chinook and Citra The orangey notes in this one, you do get into the aftertaste. I wouldn't be surprised if there's a wee bit of mosaic in this one. And I would say mosaic rather than Amarillo because there's the earthiness in there. So I think the focus is on Citra, but I think there's a bit of Chinook and a bit of mosaic in here as well, in all honesty. So in that oily bubble, at the back you get a really quite pungent, strong, grapefruity character, and the strength of that is what makes me think there's some Chinook in there, because Citra can give you some of that, but not at that level, I would say. So yeah, there's definitely some grapefruit in there. As you move further forward, you get that kind of quite sharp peachy note sitting on top, and then maybe even guava as well. But yeah, there's a lot of juicy ripe mango coming out of this one. And as you reach the middle of that front third of your palate, you've got wee hints of like apricot and maybe pineapple in there as well. Pineapple into the aftertaste for sure, and the apricot is on the drier side of things. But yeah, as you go into the front half of that, front third of your tongue, there is a wee bit, you're getting I think just behind the front tip of the tongue, it's a kind of lemony limey note, which is from Citra, but I can see why they say there's a bit of orangey note in there. It's got this quite zesty, tangerine-y, orangey character to it. This beer, I definitely have to say that. So yeah, I wasn't picking that up so much in the aroma, but in the flavour, it is pretty damn obvious actually. So yeah, I want to say Chinook, Citra definitely, they've told us that. I want to say yeah, Chinook, Citra, and maybe a bit of mosaic. But yeah, it feels like quite an old school hopped New England triple IPA, this one, and I will say it does go to your head a wee bit. I can feel this one kind of hitting me, in all honesty. But yeah, it's really nicely balanced. It's the thing I like about this one is that it is a triple IPA and it is drinkable in that sense, but it also lets you know, yes, you are drinking a New England triple IPA. So that's quite noticeable in this one. So a lot of New England triple IPAs will hide the booze a little bit, but I like that this one lets you know, yeah, the bitterness, the hoppiness, and the kind of booziness, yeah, this is a New England triple IPA. So you know, good stuff once again from Toppling Goliath. It just feels that bit more old school. Let's round off the review then with a wee quick look at the mouthfeel. For me, this beer is bottom end of full bodied. The carbonation is quite smooth, but it does have a wee bit of a prickle to it. I think that could potentially be because of the age of the beer. It's not the creamiest of New England IPAs that I've had. It's got a bit more bite to it. The IBU count in this one, I want to say, this feels a bit more bitter. This has got to be like 70 or 80 IBUs. It's one of the more bitter New England triple IPAs I've had in a wee while. The backbone of the beer, the malty side of things, drier underneath, smoother in the middle, a bit creamy on top and a little bit sweeter into the aftertaste as well. And the fruity side of things is quite citrusy, both from the tropical side with the grapefruit and stuff, then the more kind of lemon limey kind of side to it as well. But yeah, some nice juicy tropical notes and a wee bit of orange coming out of it too. I'd love to see the brew sheet of this and see what they're actually doing with it, but yeah, kind of a trade secret, I guess you could say. So yeah, I think we can, pardon me, getting a bit of gas off this, I think, again, just because of the age of the can. But yeah, I think we can leave it at that for this one. This has been a really nice beer to try. I enjoy the Toppling Goliath stuff, and this just feels a little bit nostalgic and old school for me. So in all, a review that I've enjoyed doing. So yeah, this one was the Seismic Sioux, a 9.8% New England Hazy Imperial Triple, whatever you want to call it, IPA. I suspect Citra, Chinook, and Mosaic in this one. But another very solid beer from the guys at Toppling Goliath Brewing Company in Decorah in Iowa, over in the American Midwest. So once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Toppling Goliath Brewing Company as well, and we will no doubt return to these guys again at some point in the very near future. But until then, Slàinte, Skål, cheers, check out my social media, check out their social media, and I'll catch you guys again very, very soon. Ciao just now.